Hello and welcome to Redmen TV. The Premier League season for 2018-19 is finally over. And as we all know, Liverpool ultimately finished second, but it doesn't mean there isn't plenty to talk through, talk about and talk up as well. Chris Pajak, John Machin and Ross Chandley join me for this one. Not to be confused with the season review, that is still to come. There is a game of football still to be played, and hopefully one that's...
fairly big one?
Fairly big. It's Champions League final, spoilers. Double spoilers, we win it. But it's so easy to say that when it's so far away. Chris, for a team that's barely been below second in the table since the season started, it felt like a genuine roller coaster.
Yeah, it has. And it's not because of where we've been in the table, it's because the types of games that we've been involved in, hasn't it? You know, so many games where we've had to just claw our way to a result and generally to a win. You know, even in the last few weeks, you know, you think of like the Newcastle game and there's just so many, and obviously Spurs and going a bit further back, Everton and United and all these types of games. That's why they've been roller coasters. Even Arsenal. Yeah. Was a bit of a rollercoaster. We went 1-0 down and all right, we ended up sticking, was it 5 past them in the end or something? But that in itself was a bit of a rollercoaster ride, admittedly a very fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, isn't it, because I always feel like seasons fly by. And in some regards, yeah, you know, I think this one has. But when I think back to West Ham, it was the 4-0 first game of the season.
It's like it was a different year.
Honestly, it feels like it was. It feels like it was a different decade. It feels ages ago. It feels like that was a different team from a different time.
It does feel a long time ago, yeah. I mean, there've been lots of games when we've been really bad, really poor, but we only lost one game despite that. Yeah. You know, so that's amazing. Yeah. It means that we were brilliant, but we've got room to improve. Mm-hmm. You know, it'd be awful if that was the limit of what we could do because it wasn't enough.
Yeah. No, I completely agree on that, and I think that's a great point, isn't it, Ross? I mean, look at this side. We've been saying this a few weeks ago. Liverpool only really, really kicked into high gear in the final sort of 6 weeks of the season. I think, anyway, in terms of really finding some of the players coming to the forefront. I mean, it was more than 6 weeks for Fabinho, but by the time we hit the run-in, he totally found his feet. He basically made himself an indispensable member in the midfield. We're finally starting to get a tune out of Naby Keita. After 3 years of doing a job for the team, we finally got to see the real Jordan Henderson stand up. Oxlade-Chamberlain finally fit and available, etc., etc. There's almost two Liverpools. This Liverpool we've seen in the back end of this season feels like the Liverpool we're going to see next season, whereas the start felt like a weird transitional period somehow.
Yeah, I think the level of expectancy that you have for this team as well, given how far behind we were last season, I think the leap that they've made is just ridiculous. And you know, I think you can hope. I think Naby Keita was the odd one because we wait the year for him, so you think he bed in quicker than he did, and when he doesn't do, I think you go through frustrations of players and not getting up to speed, and you know, you point at certain results there, you think don't work out, and that's where they're supposed to come and make the difference. I think the standard was just so high. Yeah. It was why it's so hard. And in the last 6 weeks that you alluded to, you have a sports team. You've watched two teams for the past 6 weeks. That's what's made it so hard, because you're thinking you're not only concentrating on what your team's doing, fighting for a title. You watch another team and go through all the emotions of wanting them to drop points.
Well, it's interesting. I think was it Brendan Rodgers' analogy about building the plane while it's already in the air, and we did that this season. No one really thinks about it, but you know, we changed our formation, we changed our style of play. We totally changed our style of play, but we also threw a change of formation in the middle of the season as well, Chris. So we were trying to keep things ticking over, trying to bed players in, trying to build a better way of winning against certain sides or whatever. Yeah, all whilst putting together a title challenge, all whilst putting together a Champions League run as well.
And the mad thing is, what we started out life with is something like a Boeing 747 or something when we took off, and by the end of the season we were a stealth plane. Yeah. You know, we trimmed all the fat and we were flying under the radar and just battering teams left, right and centre. It was incredible.
Nailed that analogy, mate. Absolutely nailed it. I was like, oh yeah, okay. Oh, you're not flying under the radar. Absolute perfection. But it's dead right, because you know, we've seen this plenty of times, Dad, you know, but we're going up against the Man City side, and look, they had to adapt along the way. You know, we're not to take anything away from them, but also this isn't, you know, Blue Men TV or whatever. You know, it's that gag that we've had for many years.
You look at last year, we beat them 3 times, and they only beat us when we had 10 men on the pitch. Mm-hmm. And they came to Anfield at the start of this season, And they changed the way they played to stop us playing. They were that scared of us. Yeah. You know, and it proved right that they were scared of us because we were the big challenge. Yeah. You know, and that game is one of the really significant ones in the whole season.
And I said it's worth mentioning. We're talking about the evolution of this side just in the space of this season. That Man City side hasn't had to evolve. That's a City side that got 100 points last season. And yes, they've improved naturally because Sterling's a better player. And they had the season of Bernardo Silva in, and they added Mahrez, etc. But the best players were still largely their best players. I mean, again, Sterling went up a level, but it was him and Aguero the season before.
And a club that's won the title, you know, 4 or 5 times. I mean, it wasn't as if Guardiola came and rebuilt a side from scratch. They were already champions.
Yeah, they've won 4 of 8, haven't they? I think since 2012, something like that. I mean, it's impressive what they've been able to do. But you know, when you look at what this Liverpool side has done and the change of formation, and the complete change of style of play, and even compare, you know, from the City game where we got beat. I wonder whether come the end of the season, if the two sides had played, the result wouldn't have been slightly different, because we have improved to the point where we still managed to control games, but we were still lethal on the counter-attack. Yeah. And we were much more fluid in the 4-3-3 formation towards the end of the season than when we played Manchester City. So going into next season, I don't think the results between the sides will stay the same as it was this season. I think Liverpool will go on at least win their home game against Manchester City if we start the season the same way that we finished it.
Yeah, Ross, let's break it down. 97 points, best defence in the league, a duel, or 2 of the 3 Golden Boot winners, I should say. Golden Gloves winner. We lost 1 game all season. I've seen Man City fans using the whole typical City thing a lot. Surely there's got to come a point at some point in the not too distant future where we have a season where Liverpool are brilliant and everyone else is rubbish, because whenever we're class, there's just always someone else who's just that little bit more ready. And you know, we've talked about it on the podcast, and I think generally, you know, I think we're all doing okay at the moment off the back of it, but we should be in bits, because that's fucking heartbreaking. How are you going to get the highest points tally this club's ever had, and fall to a side, you know, and was it 2 of the Premier League seasons in the whole of the Premier League, the 2 seasons we wouldn't have won it, and one of them's this season and the other season is last season.
It's not just the Premier League, it's the whole history of English football. Yeah. 127 years, there's only been two occasions when people have got more than 97 points. They were both City. It
feels just like almost like a cosmic joke. Like, you know, we keep having this, like, you've got everyone wins the league, we're in the top of Christmas, apart from Liverpool, 3 times now. That's 3 times we've been top of Christmas and not the league, and it's the only team that happens to. I think we genuinely think we're into curse territory. You know what I mean? I don't know, such things don't exist, of course, but it does feel like there's something, like Bruce Grobbelaar needs to do that thing when he goes and wheezes on the goalposts, you know what I mean, to break a curse or whatever. That feels like where we're at.
Yeah, I think because we've been in the thick of it, you still can appreciate this side. I think we're all kind of the same mindset in that baseline. It's not like we both teams finish on 82 points, for example, and you can look at more results and where you fell down. I don't think you can fault this Liverpool side on any level for getting so many points. And like you've already said, City got 198 points out of 2 seasons. Yeah. I mean, it's just fucking stupid, isn't it? So how are you supposed to compete with that? I think you have to appreciate them on level for how good the managers and how good the players are, and there's always that vindication of, you know, how they got about the money and stuff. You'd always have in the back of your mind, and things could be different. But, you know, shoulda, woulda, coulda, basically, isn't it? But, you know, you still. I mentioned the gap that we had before last season of going, well, that's enough for me to kind of reason with it in my head of going, oh, I never thought we were going to get 97 points this season. And it's just kind of bad luck or something. It's sod's law, isn't it? It's the way that things go sometimes.
I'm sorry, I don't think we're cursed at all. I think, how can you be cursed with a side that just put up 97 points? You know, we're not. We should be enjoying what this side is doing. And forget about Manchester City and how many points they've got. What an incredible season at Anfield. We won 17 times at Anfield. You know, that's insane. And we drew 2 games. You know, it's ridiculous what we've been able to do.
We got 44 points away from home, which is exactly the same as City. So it's just incredible.
You're not cursed. We should be enjoying this. And here's the other thing. I totally get what you said about, you know, wouldn't it be nice? Of course it would be nice. But you know what would be better than fucking winning it when everyone's shit? Winning it against the best Premier League side that's ever existed, that spent more money than absolutely everybody, that's cheated the way to get there. For Liverpool to win against that side would mean much more than everyone having a shit season and us winning by 20 points.
It would be nice
really
if
would
we
to me.
became the greatest side that ever been.
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny, I can't help but reference the Rossman Klopp at his time at Mainz, and I got to talk to him about it in the summer. They missed out on promotion by a point and then by a goal, I think it was, and then they were rubbish the next season, and they actually got promoted clearly. The good thing we've got kind of going for us is there's a little bit of precedent for that kind of stuff with him, but it is largely irrelevant. But it is, as you kind of mentioned, there's an inner strength, I think, that this squad presents that we've not actually seen at Liverpool probably in our time of supporting the club. That we've been to 4 seasons under Jurgen Klopp. We've had heartbreak at the end of basically 3 of them so far. In the ones prior to this one, we went from the Europa League final to have a season out of Europe, but we got into top 4 to achieve our objectives. And then obviously last season, losing in the Champions League final, we went and put up the highest points tally in the club's history, followed by another Champions League final. So there's certainly plenty of encouragement that this is not like a 13-14 disaster waiting to happen.
I think there's quite a few things that are different. I think the spine in the team's completely different to 13-14, and the mentality of like getting the Champions League final last season, of going, I'm sure it was soul destroying for a couple of weeks, and I go, oh right, we've got to do this again. But they've roasted the challenge, they got to another Champions League final, and then bettered the league by 20 odd points. Yeah. So, we missed out on it this season. We'll just use that to motivate you next season. Go, actually, there'll be fine margins, and you already mentioned the progress this team's made in 4 months itself. As you said, we'll take that into next season, and you're still going to add to that as well.
I don't feel, having got 97 points, as though we've stretched ourselves to our limits. To go back to this thing about potential. I mean, we had a month where we drew 4 games. Yeah. I mean, you cut even half of that out, and you're over 100 points. Well,
the draws are an interesting one, because I think that remains the biggest criticism, because people will look back to Liverpool having the lead at the top of the Premier League coming out of the Christmas period, and then squandering it for one reason or another. And the draws that people will reference, and it'll be one or multiples of Leicester at home on the 30th of January, West Ham away on the 4th of February, United away on the February the 24th, and Everton away on March the 3rd. Where do you stand on that? Because you're dead right.
All 4 of those were odd games for me. I mean, the West Ham and Leicester both played really well. Mm-hmm. Everton, it's a derby game. And United, that was the daftest game I've seen all season, where people were just dropping like flies all over the place. Bobby got injured, didn't he? They had about 3 players injured, and it totally destroyed our rhythm. But you don't go into a season expecting to win at Goodison and at Old Trafford. Mm-hmm. You normally get a point there and you think, yeah, that's good.
I look at those as the draws, and because the ones that their fans are most, they're quite prevalent because their fans bleat on about it. Obviously, because that's the tangible impact that Man United fans and Everton fans will feel they had on the course of the title, and fair play. But people still, I think, are most angry about the Leicester and West Ham ones. And the 30th of January and the 4th of February, like. If you can't afford to draw 2 games of football, that like 4 months before the season ends.
But drawing at home, that's the key.
True enough. No,
you shouldn't drop points at home. I mean, that should be your banker, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Put those whatever it is, 57 points in the bag. Yeah. And then worry about the rest.
But again, that's the case. Then Leicester at home, 30th of January. You can't possibly say that. You can't afford to draw that one game at the end of January.
At home all season.
But next season you will.
Yeah.
Next season you'll say, we can't afford to drop points in February.
People will talk about the draws, and they can do, listen, it's fair enough that if they want to and stuff. But I think of it, over the course of the season, this all balances itself out. How many late winners did we get? Everton at home, first of all, should that have been a win? No, it shouldn't have been a win. Spurs, Newcastle. Yeah. There's games littered throughout the season where Liverpool have somehow got 3 instead of 1. Yeah. And it happened time and time again. So you can point to 2 draws if you want, but I'll give you 5 wins where we didn't deserve 3 points.
You'd have to say, City lost 4 games. They'd have loved to have turned 3 or 4 of them into draws.
Yeah, absolutely.
As it was, we got draws instead of defeats. Yeah. But we're still a point short, and we can't get away from that, And, it probably does come down to our head-to-heads with City.
Well, that's a great point, actually. I mean, Ross, that's the other thing, isn't it? As mentioned, Pep Guardiola played for a draw at Anfield. He very nearly come away with all 3 points if Mahrez hadn't missed the penalty. And then obviously they beat us at the Etihad by the finest of margins again. I didn't realise how important that was going to be ultimately, but again, this is the fine margins. If you had to beat, all we had to do was take a point off Man City, you know, take another point, take a point away from home, or get a win at Anfield. But again, this is an incredible team. They're the only team that beat us in the league this season.
Yeah, but then how many other seasons would the 97 points won you something? You know, it's just stupid. I think
well, we beat them at Anfield last season. We battered them at Anfield last year. I know we battered them 4-3 or whatever, 3-2, whatever it was. But you know, exactly, we didn't put the rest of the season together around it.
I think it's all a massive learning curve, and I think, like you said, we were going through transition at that stage. I think we're at a different period to what City are. Like they were the finished article. They got 100 points last season, whereas we were like kind of still piecing it all together, weren't we? And learning and adapting throughout the season, change the formation, like you said. And I think the other thing is, people probably thought it was disappointing, or they look back at those draws, and last season where we were smashing teams 4-5-0 on a weekly basis, we reined that in. We stopped doing that. That's when people go, actually, that's where you need to change it, or the whole Noel Fekir thing was getting brought up, and then, you know, Jurgen Klopp lost his assistant manager halfway through the season, yet still got 97 points.
Yeah.
That was another thing to throw into the works, wasn't it?
It was astonishing the amount of narratives that it kind of just fell on their arse and died, Dad, because we just ended up being really good, and the Buvac stuff is one part of it. Nabil Fekir, we didn't sign an attacking midfielder. It was Fabinho. Why did we sign Fabinho? What's the point? Why did we sign Keita, etc., etc.? And it's another example of, because everyone demands immediacy and everyone demands answers and everyone thinks that what's in front of them is how it's always going to be.
If Ross's point about last season, we ripped people to shreds. This season we didn't do that, and people were saying, well, we've still got the same players, why aren't we doing it? Yeah. And it was because we switched the focus, as Klopp said in his interview with you before the season started, to making sure your defence was sound. Mm-hmm. You know, and in doing that, you lose a little bit of what you've got going forward. But we still scored loads and loads of goals. Yeah. We still only lost one game all season, and we still got 97 points. Yeah. You know, and there is, as I said, room for improvements. I mean, it wasn't ideal that you lose to City and then have 4 draws in the month that follows. I mean, that was just
careless. But it followed the same.
Sorry, I've just been looking up something because I knew it was false. We scored more goals this season in the league than last season. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So people keep telling me we smashed teams 4 and 5. We didn't. Yeah. We didn't do. We scored 7 twice in the Champions League, and everyone automatically.
Well, we also scored
89
five against Rome.
Of course, we scored 5 against Arsenal.
We scored 4 against.
We scored 5
City
against Watford.
And 3 against City.
You know,
and
so we scored 89 goals.
I know, but the impression from last season is that we were just this wonderful goal scoring machine. And you're right. We were still a goal scoring machine this year, but we had a better defence.
Well, what we did as well was the way our approach to football changed. We stopped trying to beat teams in the first half and started beating them over 90 minutes instead. In fact, we stopped exerting ourselves in the first half. We just play a game of footy, feel people out. If we scored that goal, most of the times we scored a goal late in the first half and then got another couple early on into the second, and the game was
It was
done.
A noticeable difference between City and us, wasn't it? They scored an awful lot of goals in the first 15 minutes, us in the last 15. And it's a bit bad of you going grey to score in the last 15 minutes all the time. But it's a really nice thing to have in your locker, isn't it? Absolutely. Late goals.
Well, their approach, Ross, was like how Liverpool tried. I think we kind of tried it the season where Chelsea won it as well, because we didn't have Europe as well as them. Caught the blocks flying, try and get a lead up, and then just when it all crumbles apart, hopefully you've built up enough a lead. It is City come tearing out, hoping to stretch away from us, and we never did. We were just jogging away in the distance. We ran it like a marathon, and I think they ran it like a sprint. The difference is, I mean, just to mix the metaphors ever so slightly, they've got that. It's more of a relay in that regard, that they had a few more bodies to maintain the sprint, but they looked on their arse by the end of that. So you look at those Leicester games, and exactly, they didn't look like a team that was, that had much more left in the tank at that point. But we both of us had a strategy for the season, and theirs worked, but only by the finest of margins.
I think you argue they both worked. They both got an incredible point tally. I think the word Scott Barnes about for ours is maturity in this team, and I think that's the key for us. And going forward, that's the key for us as well. Of kind of learning from it, not being too down. But I quite like the way that we kind of progressed, and it was weird watching it, because we were gung ho, weren't we? I don't know, take the goals aside, it was like rock and roll football, and it was a bit weird trying to work that out as a fan of going like, why aren't we doing that so much? But it was mentally breaking people down, actually going, calm down a minute, pull the reins in, and thinking we can win every game, and I think that was hard to adjust for as a fan.
What I think is really interesting and gives me great encouragement for next season is we've had 1 year with this style of play. It's the third season Manchester City have been playing like that. Yeah. You know, it's a completely different, it's night and day to what we played like last season. We've done it 1 year and done 97 points. When they're all a year better at it, what are we going to be able to do?
Yeah.
And you know, you look at the teams and how they set up, and I think too much has been focused on teams are just rolling over for Man City. I think that's bullshit, quite frankly. I think what Manchester City do is they press so well and the attack is so high up the pitch and they dominate the ball so much that it looks like teams are rolling over because they can't get the ball off them. Yeah. But what will happen next season is Liverpool will do that, and they'll do that better than we've done it this season. And then teams will start saying about us, why are they just rolling over for Liverpool? Yeah. It's not them rolling over, it's us being dead good, and it's Man City being dead good this year.
You're 100% right. I had this realisation the other week where, like, we went into the Wolves game and we'd finished the season on 97 points. None of us even considered for a second. Some of us even put tweets out, not even considering
Two things that can happen, I said. Yeah. Liverpool win and we win the league, or Liverpool win and we don't.
Yeah. It never entered our heads that we wouldn't beat Wolves because that's how good we are. And to be fair, it shouldn't have entered anyone's heads that anyone was going to beat Man City because we're at that level, we're that good a side. The difference is what Liverpool have done is that we've had to change our style of play because we're not underdogs anymore. We've had to adapt to be an elite side, and that means that 16 of the clubs who you're going to play against, particularly at Anfield, are going to come and do everything in their power to stop you scoring. They're not even going to chance it. So you've got to go out there and you've got to be comfortable in your own skin. You've got to be confident, and you've got to appreciate that. You know, if you're going to be battering on a door, it's going to be a lot harder to do it. It's going to be a lot easier to do it if you've still got something in the tank in the last 15 minutes because when their defences have weakened, you've got to learn to fight a war of attrition and have the confidence in your ability to not lose your head and not blow yourselves out.
Polish up that crossbar and the cop.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, but that's the thing, is that's what we've had to do this season. That's the difference between last season. We were an unknown entity to some extent. You can't get to the Champions League final and then expect to play on the counter for 3 quarters of your games. That's where Leicester
scored 40 goals in a year.
Exactly. You know, you go to people's grounds as the team that were in the Champions League final, and if we win it this year, which we probably will, go into grounds next season as champions of Europe. Everyone in that team is going to want to beat you. Yeah. Every fan is going to be screaming for your blood. Yeah. You know, and then you've got to learn to live with that.
But we haven't been that side, Ross, for so long. I've never seen Liverpool have to be, and because normally what happens is we do the construct a really good bit, we fall short, and then we never transition into being into that side. Our style of play, we always have this like swashbuckling style, and we never get to evolve it. Rafa Benitez, after 08-09, yes, the Alonso stuff, putting that to one side because that's an issue, but he knew he needed more goals. So like Aquilani was meant to be a more attacking version of Alonso. Glenn Johnson was meant to be a more attacking version of Alvaro Arbeloa, and we never found the bounce again in that side. And obviously, it's a very light comparison because we can't go into too much depth and detail on that because that's a whole show in and of itself. But this is the issue we've got, whereas we've taught ourselves how to be one of the biggest teams in the world, how to be a big scalp and how to be comfortable in our own skin being a big scalp.
Yeah, I think that the players have learned from that as well, as I said before, of like losing the Champions League final and this, you know, the contact that happened could have absolutely ruined half of those players, and they've taken on a new style of play themselves and had to change, and the versatility that Klopp's brought into those players as well, I think's helped us get where we are. And there's the players there where I thought like were dead and buried, like Joel Matip. Well, he's just come back into the fold again. It's like he's probably our second best centre half at the minute. But that's a credit to Jurgen Klopp and his team of like they don't give up on people. David Origi, another one. I thought he was gone. But he's arguably given a new contract now.
He was meant to be terrible. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've been here before. That I referenced it the other week. Like, when you send a lad out on loan, and even if they're dead good on loan, they're never that good when you bring them back. Like, I mean, I joked about Andrew Voran the other week, and he had an amazing little, like, Toulouse or wherever he went to, and he was great. And then we went, oh, well, great, well, he scored like 15 goals or something last season, that'll be something. And it was nothing. He was genuinely terrible. It's a testament to that. It's a testament to, like, to David Origi. He's given us 2 of the moments of the season. And also, he's had a... Again, he should have been a flop.
What did he finish with? Six goals?
Yeah.
given the hardly ever played and he nearly always played as a sub, that's not too bad, given that we thought he'd never play for us again. He's actually an extraordinarily talented footballer who'd gone totally to pot. His confidence, he was like Benteke, his confidence was just gone. So to fight his way back is all credit to him.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to look past that being the Everton thing being the highlights of the league season, perhaps.
Yeah, Premier League season, definitely, yeah. I think, as Chris said before, there's loads of games where you kind of think it's not going to happen. And I think that was another case of this season as well, of finding hard as fans going, like, this is the moment, this is kind of where we drop points. But happened like time and time again. We kind of churned out, and I think we all agree we all had different points of when that happened. So it was Chelsea for me, I think, when we beat them 2-0 and Salah scores that. I think actually, this is a really good side. But in times before that, I think we should drop points somewhere along the way. It used to be the low block sides, and we kind of eradicated that, and then we were fighting into top 6, but then that's kind of dropped off a bit. But the Everton game and Origi just goes to show the die-hard attitude and never giving up, because I think I was resigned to the fact that was a draw.
Yeah, we've had nothing off the bench.
I think
for
that's
so
the
long.
funniest thing this season was that goal going in.
He's still got to be in the right place at the right time.
And he had the chance slightly just before.
I mean,
it as well,
the one that pleased me most was the one at Tottenham's goal in the last minute, because it meant so much. I could see the title slipping away, and suddenly we had the win, and that was brilliant.
The Origi stuff, Chris, and similarly for Shaqiri as well. Again, going back to the recent title challenges, 13, 14, 08, 09, which isn't so recent when I realise it's 10 years. But it feels recent to me. We never had anything off the bench. We never, and that's why it boils down to. I'm so used to players. It's like, oh my God, this is where we're at. This is where we see the limits of this squad. The Newcastle game this season in particular, I think, is the one that's most telling of that, because Mo Salah's down injured, and you just think, well, brilliant, that's it. Fuck now. That's it. That's it. Game season over.
What was the game? Was it Huddersfield where Hendo and Milner came on?
Oh, Southampton.
Away, I mean, think about those type of substitutions as well. I would say, I can't really remember too well, but Rafa probably had as good a calibre of players off the bench as we've had this season. But Klopp's better at getting stuff out of them, and he's got that trust that he's just going to keep trying. I said to you...
Is Divock Origi better or worse than David and Go?
He's better. But, Divock Origi's not... I don't think any side in the top 6 thinks Divock Origi's worth his weight.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think any of the sides there
no
are
one
thinking...
stumped up 25 million to buy him in the summer.
Well, he turned Wolves down, didn't he?
But so I think what I'm trying to say is, I said to you off camera the other week, the one thing that I didn't understand towards the end of the season with Jurgen Klopp and what he was doing is, it felt like Daniel Sturridge was being the second striker, then it felt like Divock Origi, and I never really understood where Shaqiri fit in, and now I can look at the season as a whole and go, it's just giving them games, because you never know when you're going to need one of them, and that's testament to him.
Well, your point was, why is Divock Origi playing on the wing? Why is he not playing centre forward as well? Why are you using Daniel Sturridge centre forward and just play Divock when you've got Divock Origi there? And then we played Barcelona, albeit in the Champions League, albeit we'll talk about this in more depth on the full season review. And we went with Shaqiri and Origi and Mane up front against Barcelona and beat them fucking 4-0. That's not supposed to happen.
And it's because he just gives them an opportunity to showcase what they can do.
The England cricket team at the moment are preparing for their World Cup. And every game they play 3 or 4 different players, because they want to bed them in just in case they need them later on. And that's exactly the strategy you should always have. Every player in that squad should be ready to get on the pitch and do his stuff. And it's no good having players who sit on the bench for every game, and then the last game you say, you better give us a shift here because everyone's injured. It just doesn't work.
On the flip side of that, which is the other side of the strength, as much as the lads on the fringes, because I think what we've done really is you look at the lads who've contributed, some in smaller ways than others. It's those lads who were good enough to get us to the Europa League final, who've actually come in and had a tangible, like Adam Lallana had that little spell toward the back end of the season, come in and helped out. Divock Origi's and another one. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad we never got to see Simon Mignolet, but these are Dejan Lovren. I think he's only like 16 Premier League starts or something this season, but I don't think no errors leading to goals in that time, which is a good step up for him, Dejan Lovren. He's gone in and had positive contributions in games, and that's kind of what we've done. But on the flip, 3 Premier League ever presents this season: Alisson, Van Dijk and Salah, albeit slightly different, obviously, minutes played and what have you, but that's what you need, Ross. You need, I mean, particularly those two there, Alisson and Van Dijk. You need your best players on the pitch as often as possible, and that's what we were able to do.
I think argue Salah in there as well. As much as people said he's not had the best season or whatever, he's still got golden boot. He's still a winger, and he's still distracted people that much that they've had to put 2-3 players on him, which has opened Marnie up to a season of success because it's impossible to go and mark all 3 of them at once, or the job that Bobby does. I just think even for intimidating people, the presence that they've got. For us as fans in the opposition, that's enough to have them 2 on the pitch, isn't it? And they're so calm and so collected. Alisson's the massive one for me because there was always points last season where, you got a ball at his feet and it's always been a case of a Liverpool fan of you just shitting yourself waiting for a mistake to happen. And even when we played Barcelona, and we're not talking about the Champions League, he's just so calm in possession. That just resonates throughout the whole squad, the whole fan base. And we've eradicated that by buying 2 players. Joe Mattis got better at ball at his feet as well. I thought he was terrible. He was like Sacco. For me, I was like, just get rid of the ball.
We should have had a game with Sacco and Matip in the same team just so we could compare because
like Irish
I get
dancing.
it, but yeah, like Sacco, something else. That the way he's got extra joints in his legs.
Matip used to be like that though. He couldn't play with the ball out with his feet, but he can.
No, I think that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I think you remember Sacco better than he was. Dear God, but yeah, no.
Sacco had an inflated view of his own abilities because every time he had the ball at his feet, he wanted to pass perfectly to a player. So he refused to hoof the ball up. Do
you remember when he injured himself, where he basically got cheered back onto the pitch, having really, really hurt himself, and he came back on and he ran for about 10 seconds and collapsed? It's like, you're doing, you fucking idiot. I would appreciate a bit of like chutzpah, you know what I mean, getting back on the pitch, but if you've actually broken, it's just like...
The best thing he did was that rugby tackle.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one? That was the absolute best thing he did, like.
Yeah.
But we had Robertson, who I don't know how many times he was missing, but it couldn't have been many.
Yeah, I think he did 36 games.
Him and Van Dijk, and Alisson, that's 3 stalwarts in your defence, and you don't want to be changing it any more than you need to.
Alberto Moreno got 2 Premier League appearances for us this season, and that's
too many.
Yeah, well, no, that's it. Like, tells you how good he is, but that's absolutely incredible. The Alisson stuff, it just can't be underestimated. I got asked on one of the BBC things the other day, like, who's the player of the season? It's obviously Van Dijk. Because he's so good. But Alisson, because of Van Dijk, is kind of isn't drawing the plaudits in the same way, and it's hard to give it to goalkeepers because inevitably you still remember the moments that he had a little wobble, or the still ones when he gets passed back to and people go. Aah! But
wasn't that last game like the 4th or 5th game of the season?
Yeah, but he because he's just we haven't had a goalkeeper as good as him in the time that Pepe Reina was great.
He's not at the same level as Alisson. Alisson's maybe the best goalkeeper in the world, and you can think back to all the points that he's got us, and the ones that I actually remember more than most, I think I remember the Brighton one, when he makes that save in the 80th minute, but it's Napoli, it's Barcelona, it's even Wolves, just gone, some massive saves, but then you think about when Fulham almost score and he rolls the ball out quickly to Trent, or takes the off, it was an offside, wasn't it? Takes the free kick quickly to Trent down to Mo, and we've got the ball in the back of the net. He was so involved in us going forwards, those throws to Robertson.
All the time, isn't he? Doesn't switch off.
He's just got a picture of where everyone is.
For me, he's certainly the best goalkeeper since Ray Clements. Yeah. But they're totally different styles of goalkeeping, completely different styles. But, Clements was brilliant. And we've had no one as good as Alisson since then.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
It says a lot when your backup keeper's basically stuck around to learn off a lad who's younger than him. It genuinely does, because he can see it. These are elite athletes who will think, I'm better than him, and he's gone, Nope. I'm not better than him.
What I like about him is that you get someone like Bravo, who's supposed to be good with his feet, and that's the kind of style that has come into fashion. He isn't just someone who's good with his feet. He's a bloody good goalkeeper.
He's not a clown, is he?
He saves your goals all the time with brilliant saves.
Yeah, he's an absolute beast.
And he's got better and better as the season's gone on, because he's played with the players in front of him more. And it's no coincidence that over the last 3 or 4 weeks we've seen him come out and save the ball at the striker's feet, because he knows. I think earlier on there was a few times that I can think of where he's hesitating slightly, as to whether he should.
We say that, but think about Chelsea away. That was when we first saw him do that. There's a one-on-one, I think, with Eden Hazard, and he just basically, it's like, well, Hazard's one-on-one, here's a goal, and then he's on to him like that. Like, but you're right, everything about him just become.
Well, just think back to Mignolet and whether he didn't know whether to come or
think
stay.
Back to that League Cup game.
Lovren used to rip his hair out every game, wondering whether.
Think about the League Cup game. Think about that back four. We played the basically Europa League back five. It says that, and we got to see a very. And I think it almost everyone was like, "Oh wow, no." Anything Alisson wants to do, anything Van Dijk wants to do, anything whatever, can they just get away with it because we've seen how bad. We've just a fresh reminder of how bad it was. I want to talk about the assist kings. Trent and Robbo, Ross. We haven't quite found out how Trent's ended up on 12. Did we figure out why he's only got 12 assists?
They gave him one assist against Wolves.
Yeah, so the first goal took a deflection, so they didn't give it to him.
Oh, I'm not having that.
Which took more of less of a deflection in the Barca one that he got.
Yeah, weird.
You know what I really wanted to happen, and it was within a whisker of happening, was Trent to assist Robertson.
Yeah.
In getting a goal, and it almost happened. He passed to him, and he had that great shot which was saved. Yeah. And it would have been really ironic if he'd gone one above Robertson for giving him a goal.
When he misses it on purpose. Not today, you wanker. I know what your game is. But yeah, 11 assists for Andy Robertson, 12 for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Fullbacks. Because I'm one from Hull, and the other one's a 20-year-old Scouse kid.
Only going to get better. Only going to get better, and the confidence going to go.
The other guys on that table are all either forwards or really good midfield players, aren't they?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But that's the system that we play, isn't it? And again, you go back to narratives we were talking about before, of like every time there's a midfield mentioned and people don't like it and go, there's no creativity, or they come back to the Nabil Fekir stuff. Well, we've learned that we don't really need that, essentially, do we? Okay, you might do in some games, you can use that as an excuse, but you take Trent's assist from the weekend alone, they're so different, aren't they? Like one's like down the byline and one's deep from that. So he's in a midfield position anyway for some of those crosses.
But it's also interesting that conversation it died at the back end of the season because the midfield started to contribute. You finally saw Naby Keita getting on the score sheet. Jordan Henderson started to contribute as well. And a lot of this I just think was like I was about to say like a metamorphosis phase where we were playing 4-2-3-1 for a spell, and then we moved back to 4-3-3.
I think it died when we went to Bayern and played Henderson, Milner, and Wijnaldum and won the game. Yeah. After the whole of our fan base went berserk, they weren't playing anyone with any creativity.
I think a lot of this was just waiting for Fabinho, wasn't it, Chris? Because you can see he's good enough to do that job to hold on his own. Whereas we've been getting him up to speed. We've been also we were making ourselves harder to beat, playing 4-2-3-1, etc., etc. So many times, the other two guys in midfield weren't box to box. They were tasked with doing defensive work. They were tasked with covering the fullbacks. They were tasked with doing all the real dirty work for the team. And then you can just see, like Jordan Henderson being unleashed in that last month of the season shows you that we were more than capable. The players we've got are more than capable of doing it. And it's matched, again, the goals tally that we're getting goals from other areas.
Yeah, we are. And listen, there's a couple of reasons I think that we got more aggressive towards the end of the season. I felt like, when we were talking about them earlier, when we played your West Hams and the Leicester's, West Ham's, even Manchester United and Everton, because they were a little bit later, I was thinking to myself, Klopp was being a little bit conservative there, because I think he genuinely thought City were going to drop points. Yeah. So it was better for us to just keep our momentum going. And what we've seen, and it's coincided with Henderson playing the 8, we've actually seen a more aggressive Liverpool side in that we're taking more risks to go and win 3 points. Yeah. And I think that's what we saw, and why Trent has got even more assists towards the back end of the season than he did at the start.
9 assists in his last 10 games.
It's absolutely scandalous what he was able to do. And a lot of the times midfielders are covering, but when back towards the end of the season, watching those goals, the midfielders are ahead of him. And he's still really far up the pitch. Yeah. And that's the difference, is we were playing with a freedom where 3 points was absolutely what we had to get. Yeah. And we were really good when it mattered.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fair play to City? Question mark?
Absolutely. 198 points in 2 campaigns. That's just extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And there's 14 wins on the bounce to win the title. Yeah. That's just brilliant.
Their players and their manager can't be involved in FFP. What they've done this season is outstanding. The way that they've played football, the way that they've all done exactly what Guardiola wants. Talk the Park FFP. What those lads have done is incredible, and you've got to shake your hands. That 14 wins on the spin.
Yeah, you're not meant to get. I mean, the City have done it before, but you think about it. We've never had. I don't think we've ever had 14 wins.
I know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about financial fair play, and I know if they've fallen foul of it, they should be punished. But they've not spent like £200 million like Paris Saint-Germain on individual players. Yeah. I think their top transfer is about 70 million, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not silly money.
Yeah.
So you're right, Chris. Forget about financial fair play. If that comes up, then fine. But that actual team were absolutely brilliant this year and last year as well. Yeah. And it's a testament to us after last year that we could raise ourselves to chase them down and frighten the life out of them.
Look at the money that they've spent. I mean, it's been flying around Twitter, hasn't it, the last few days and stuff, the money that everyone spent. And Liverpool are really low down, and that's incredible. Manchester United have spent not far off Man City, and they're nowhere near the side that Man City are. So for all the money that you're spending, and whether you're allowed it or whatever, you can spend badly, you can spend well. They've spent well, and they've coached the players
up. What they've done is they haven't spent huge amounts on individuals, but they've spent on a lot of individuals. Yeah. So they've got a much better squad than us. Yeah. It's much deeper than ours, and that does have its repercussions eventually.
You're right. It's very difficult to unpick the finances up because look, if you're right, but at the minute it's not for us to tell or judge until someone comes out black and white unequivocally and goes, here's the cheating here and there's the punishment or whatever. We can obviously know a little bit more about that. So it's tough because
all of us should have a say in what the punishment is if it comes out right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not convinced that making them miss a season in the Champions League is actually going to do us any good. Yeah, because it just means they win everything at home.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it, Ross? I don't wish any harm on their fans. That wish as I said, the players putting together that barnstorming run. If you were a gambling man, you would gamble on Man City not winning 14 games in a row. You just would. If you had to put some sensible money on something, that would be a pretty fair way to do it. It shouldn't take the shine off what we've done. And look, I don't particularly like the way that football club's constructed. I appreciate the fact that for them, for their fans who were watching them, 2 tiers down, and having to go through all that stuff and having to live with Man United fans in the same city whilst going through all that, then fair play to all of them. I think we'll rightly revisit this if it comes out that they have broken the rules, of course. But you can't. But when a team runs it that close at that level, there's a degree to which you kind of have to tip your hat to.
Yeah, and it's some of the teams that were in that run as well. I think they played Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, and United in that run as well, and they come through that. So you can't argue with that. And they have the same issue with us. I think you mentioned the draws there. People get up for games because they want to beat the champions, they want to beat the top of the table thing, and they raise their game, and City have come through that. Yeah, they've got the helping hand at the depth of the squad and stuff, but the mentality's still there, isn't it?
We can complain about it because they're winning the title with loads of points and they beat us by 1 point. But in Europe, they're up against Real Madrid, who spend loads and loads of money. Up against PSG, who spend more than anyone's ever seen. Yeah, and Barca, they're not short of a few bob to lash around. So, if they must believe that to compete in Europe, they've got to compete with those on a financial level. Because and now, long have we said we've got to compete financially in this league if we're ever going to win it. Yeah,
that's true. Dad, I just to kind of bring us to a conclusion on this. Regardless of all this, and regardless of the disappointment of not winning the league, and it felt like it was there. But what it feels like to me, it feels like we are back. If you take me with that, Liverpool feel like they're back to being the club that we wanted them to be.
We're a side that'll frighten people. People won't want to draw in cups for a team who an awful lot of journalists will tip to win the league next year and stuff like that. I tell you what, next season is going to be a really big year for us. I've seen us come second quite a few times over the last 30 years. Every time we do come second, the following season we start really badly. Yeah. And we can't afford that because we've seen City are relentless. Yeah. We've got to start next season like we started this one. With a belief that we can go on and win it.
The difficult thing for me is the African Cup of Nations. I think that could hinder our start. And, I've seen Jamie Carragher talk about the year after 2008, 2009. And I think, what does he say? We lost 3 games all season. And then all of a sudden we'd lost 3 in the first, whatever it was. And that mentally affected the squad. If the likes of Naby Keita get fit and are playing in it, or Mane and Salah come back and they're tired after a World Cup and then an incredibly long season and then the African Cup of Nations.
Yeah, the African Cup of Nations is worse because Egypt and some of those sides are actually very good in that competition and are going to go a long way into it. The World Cup, Mo wasn't in it for very long at all, was he? You know, and we all remember when Mane went a couple of years ago, and he went in January, and we all said we have no one to replace him, and we fell apart a bit. We actually bought Salah in our mind to undercover Mane in case he had to leave to go, you know.
Yeah.
And now he's firing Egypt into championships at bell end.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we'll survive, but I do think I'm sure Klopp is mindful of that, and we'll make sure his squad can cope. Absolutely. And you know, we're going to have players like Ox coming back in, and
so
that's going to help.
Optimistic about the league next season?
You have to be. You know, you're going to be in that conversation. It comes back to that mentality of the Champions League getting ruined and stuff. And I think the difference is we've got a squad this time, and we're going to add to that squad even more, and hopefully compete with Leicester City and be able to bring people off the bench for certain games or rest players here and there, which will get more out of them than we're already getting.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with everything. I feels like, and we'll know, and it'll be borne out, but those all I've talked about all season is like those lingering fears, and the fears of past Liverpool sides that we carry with us. You know, like after disappointments, the Liverpool team always capitulates the season after, or you know, we when we come to a crunch deciding game and we need to just get those points in order to do it, we always cock that up. I think we lose the Coventry's last game of the season, and Bradford's.
We only lost 2 all season, and then we lost our first 2 games the next season.
No, exactly. Well, that's what I mean. And so I think we're now in a position now where what Klopp's said all along is about like not carrying the weight of history with you. And I still think we were weirdly carrying the weight of a Premier League trophy without actually having one, which is the big thing that we need to get off our backs without a doubt. But what we're able to do now, there's now enough body of work, enough body of evidence that you can look at Klopp's Liverpool and say, what does this team do? What does this team look like? How does it play? How do they approach things? How do they bounce back? How do they do all these things? And trust. And that's all football is. It's all just trusting fellas that you've never met who will earn more money than you'll ever possibly see in your whole life to go out there and do something good for you to stop you feeling like shit every week. That at least I think we can all trust that these lads and this manager's the right people to lead us forward. So yeah, fingers crossed. And as I say, just a little matter of one more game left this season, which we can all look forward to. Thank you very much for watching the redmentv.com this season. Plenty of build-up content to come your way, of course. If you're enjoying your subscription, let people know about it. And thank you very much to everyone who's joined us. There's going to be some amazing stuff coming up, and I hope you're there with us on that journey and beyond as well. Gentlemen, thank you very much. That draws the 2018-19 Premier League season to a close. Thank you very much. See you all soon.